guys, and welcome to my next video in Doctor Who December. This is my third installment of the Moffat era rankings. And just a little disclaimer, at this point, every single episode, I feel like every single episode I adore. They're probably ones that I think very fondly of. It was so hard to rank the rest of these. So honestly, if you ask me again in a year, I might have jumbled all of these around in different order and stuff like that. But for right now, this is my ranking. And yeah, let's just get right into it. Number 30 on this list is Last Christmas, I Gave You My Heart. Yes, so I was actually very pleasantly surprised about this particular Christmas special. There was a certain wonderful, magical quality to a lot of 10's Christmas specials, a lot of, 11th Christmas specials, and let's be real, guys. Especially in season 8, 12 was a bit of a grumpus. He was a bit of a grumpus. And I was like, oh Lord, we're gonna do a Christmas special and it's supposed to be magical and whimsy. I mean, it doesn't always have to be, but you know what I mean? You kind of get that vibe. And I'm just like, oh boy. And I feel like they knocked it out of the park. If nothing else, it's a really important episode for 12 and Clara's relationship. I feel like it solidified them as kind of the TARDIS team that we kind of, grew with over time. I feel like with, they had a rocky season, in season 8. I think that's, kind of obvious, but I loved that. I loved the other characters in it. I think that they just did a phenomenal job with that Christmas special, and there was just like the sweet scene where she was older and it was kind of reminiscent of Time with the Doctor and everything like that, and I quite loved that. And yeah, it's a stellar Christmas special in my opinion. Number 29 on this list is another Christmas special. It is A Christmas Carol. So for a while, this one was holding kind of my top spot for Christmas specials. And it's still, I think, maybe one of the Christmas specials I rewatch the most, because a lot of the other Christmas specials that have beaten it on this list are ones that I cry a lot. So, you know what I mean? So it has that kind of rewatch factor. I don't feel like I'm like crying inside every time I watch it. And I think it's this one to get into kind of the holiday-ish spirit. I feel like this one is one that I gravitate towards, and weirdly, I know not a very popular opinion, The Next Doctor is another one that I kind of gravitate towards for that. And I just really, really love how sweet this story is. It has that beautiful line from 11 that, he's never met anybody who wasn't important, and it's just so 11 and I love it. And who knew that flying fish would really be such a, I don't know, like a story about flying fish would really like speak to my heart so much. But it was a really cool take on A Christmas Carol. I quite loved it, and it's a really sweet story. And there is, it's not, it's a somber but sweet story, and I love that about it. Number 28 on this list is The Power of Three. I love this episode. It's a good time. Now, I know that I think maybe people would say it's like the low budget episode because they didn't really go anywhere and it was kind of all within one little space, and it is a bit bizarre. But, when I go back and I think about it, it was like one of the last outings of my pawns, and it was such a sweet, I felt like it was very fitting that was kind of like the second to last story with the three of them, that it kind of, it was a kind of an around the house sort of story that really kind of solidified them as a family unit. And you know, whenever I get Rory's dad, I'm happy. So it was a great episode for me. Had some emotional moments with Eleven and Amy, and I just the fact that they made the decision to kind of go off, and you know that they couldn't really live without 11, and it ends tragically, but I love that episode. Number 27 on this list is Listen. Oh my Lord, I think that this episode is just a beautiful episode, and I was really happy that 12 kind of got such a great a very well written episode so early on in his run as the Doctor, and I mean, just kind of the revelation at the end was a wonderful payoff. I absolutely loved it. But it just sort of kind of it was kind of scary. It kind of, you know, was a very, like, it really made you think. And I just absolutely adored this episode. And was kind of, I feel like one of the first ones that really, I mean, made Clara a very important part of the Doctor's life, but really kind of bonded her and 12, and I love that. Number 26 on this list is The Lodger. I love this episode. I think it's hilarious, and I think you either love the dynamic between Matt Smith and James Corden in, you know, the episodes that they had together, or you really don't like it. But I fall on the side of loving it. I thought it was funny. I think it's quirky. I think it's really kind of just a good time. And I also think very fondly of this episode because after this episode, I felt a lot of love from you guys, and I felt that before in Doctor Who at that point and everything like that. But there was a lot of you guys really loved that reaction for some reason. I think it was because I was like really obsessed with the monkey part of it. I don't know, but I just felt really embraced by you guys, and it was just. I just have such fond memories of watching that episode and uploading it for you guys. Number 25 on this list is one that, here's the thing, guys. Here's the thing. I don't really know what's received. I kind of know, but I have a very warped view of what's received well and what's not, because sometimes I don't read the comments. Sometimes it would be, you know, recently, for the most part, I have not read the comments. But back then I did. And I have to say that I think, maybe not, but I think this might be one of the ones that I think is the most underrated, one of the most underrated stories, and I adore it, and I watch it. This is one that I rewatch a lot. I absolutely love it, and that is The Beast Below. I feel like so many, I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I just think it's such a great story, and it's a sweet story, and it's a beautiful start. I mean, obviously the 11th Hour was a great start for 11 and Amy, but I feel like this one was more her going somewhere, her kind of being, and the kind of analogies that she made between the star whale and the Doctor, and there's just something so beautiful about this story, and I have just such a strong emotional attachment to it. I can't even begin to tell you. And I believe it was at the end. No, was it the end of this reaction, or was it the end of the next reaction? It was one of those, but it was a strong part of why I so quickly clung on to 11 and absolutely adored him. I love that story to bits. Number 24 on this list is Dinosaurs on a Spaceship. Again, another one that I watch a lot, but I skip a particular scene, and it's a little lower on this list than how much I should have loved this. I mean, it had everything. It had everything that I wanted in an episode, but the dinosaur died. Come on guys, we need to petition for an episode where there's gonna be dinosaurs and it's gonna be awesome and none of the dinosaurs are gonna die. Okay? All right? I love monkeys and I love dinosaurs and dogs. We don't see a ton of dogs in Doctor Who, but the dinosaurs do not do well. Oh, sorry, that's me just getting on. But this episode has everything that I could possibly, I feel like I could possibly want in an episode. It has 11, it has Amy, it has Rory, my favorite TARDIS team. Okay, we're already doing good. It has Rory's dad, added bonus. I mean, it didn't have River, but yeah, I mean, well, you know, it's okay, give and take a little bit. It had dinosaurs, spaceships, and sassy robots. The sassy robots I was here for, I loved, and a very menacing villain. I like when the villains are really kind of nasty people. I just, love this episode, except for the one scene that I skip over and I pretend that, you know, the dinosaur just went for a walk. Number 23 on this list is Face the Raven. This, to me, and I've said this, and I talked about it when I talked about Hellbent, I loved this episode. I thought it was such a beautiful and fitting end for Clara. I just loved it. I thought that it was great. I liked that they brought back a character, well, they brought back me, or Ashilda, whatever you want to call her, as well. But I mean, I like that they brought back a character, and 12 and Claire are both trying to figure it out. And sadly and tragically, but beautifully, I loved that it was Clara kind of trying to be the doctor that doomed her in the end. I thought it was something so, and it's just so sad. I mean, the goodbye between, and I absolutely love the scene where, you know, Clara is like, you know, she asks me if there's anything she can do, or something to that effect, and me is, you know, trying to, and she's like, excuse me, I don't have a lot of time, please shut, you know, yes or no answer, okay, I have to say goodbye to the one person that means the most to me, so hush up, you know. And it was so tragic, but there's something so beautiful about the fact that Clara, in a lot of the earlier episodes, I feel like she had some moments, I talk about that moment in Cold War where she was genuinely terrified, and she's grown as a character, as a companion, to this point where she has to accept the fate of her own actions. There is something very inspiring about that, and something very tragic about that. And the fact that the doctor can't save her is just doubly tragic. Yeah. Honestly, the doctor is, and he has one of my favorite lines in that episode where he says, the doctor is no longer here, you're stuck with me now. Whoo! Chills down the spine, and I'm scared, and I love it. It's such a great episode. Number 22 is The Doctor's Wife. Such a beautiful episode. I'm telling you, all of these episodes, I feel like at this point can be like tied for number one, because I have such a deep love for a lot of these seasons and a lot of these episodes, and oh my lord, The Doctor's Wife, giving kind of a personality, or well, I guess the TARDIS has always had a personality, you know what I mean? But like kind of a human face for the TARDIS, a voice for the TARDIS, is such a beautiful idea. And it could have gone wrong, but I think it went oh so very right. There was something so lovely. And still, I'm gonna say, still to this day, there's a lot of the really, when the TARDIS is talking, a lot in the first bits and she's really rambling. I still don't know what half of the things she says is. Like, I can't follow. I'm like, oh, uh-huh. I'm sure if like you go back and watch my reaction, I'm like, yeah, oh, she's so funny. I had no idea what she said. But the emotional moments, first of all, Amy and Rory in the TARDIS, that was scary as shit. And oh my God, like that was a whole separate, I feel like that's a whole separate episode. Like there was a lot going on with that. But there was also the beautiful moments of, you know, Eleven and the TARDIS working together and, you know, at the very end, there's just something so lovely about the episode that I just, it's for me one of the most memorable ones and having some of the most memorable scenes that I've seen of Doctor Who yet. Number 21 on this list, and I know a lot of you people are not gonna agree, you can leave your hate below, is the Rings of Akhaten. Am I saying that right? Akhaten? Here's the thing. Let me break down why this is so high, but not like super high. Now, in some ways, I wanted to make it super high. I think it's a sweet story. I think oh God, that music and that song is just so good. And I love the story. I love what it was. I feel like it was a very wonderful story that I felt was very fitting to Eleven's Doctor, though I'm sure other doctors could have pulled it off beautifully as well. I'm not saying that. I felt like there was a kind of very beautiful magical element to it that I quite loved. That really tied in with kind of his Doctor's run. Here's the thing. That speech is my favorite speech in Doctor Who history. I cry when I think about it. I'm crying right now. No, I'm not crying right now, but I'm tearing up. Like I'm trying to blink a lot. It's everything. I love it. I rewatch it more times than I really want to admit to you guys. And it embodies why I love Matt Smith so much as the Doctor. Woo! Okay. Sorry. It just means a lot to me, that scene, and it pains me to put it at 21 and not in my top 20, but I am one of those people that kind of believes that it should have been the other way around, that maybe Clara tries with her leaf and then the many, many lives that the Doctor has lived it could have been a learning moment for Clara to say, oh, like, and to really realize how old he is, how much he's lost, how much, you know what I'm saying? And I do know that the leaf was, that's not me not comprehending what the show was trying to say about the leaf. There was all the possibilities that could have been or was, and like, I understand that. I just think it would have been a lot more powerful if that was enough. So that's kind of the only reason that it's a little bit lower. But Eleven's performance, or Matt Smith's performance in that episode, speaks to me very dearly, and that speech has not been topped for me, though I'm sure a lot of you disagree, but for me that moment is just, whew, I love it. Okay, let me move on. Number 20 on this list is the Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon. Sorry, I'm trying not to look down too much. Everything was going on in this episode. My Lord. And I love the silence. I find the silence to be kind of a bad guy that a lot of people don't talk about too much as being their favorites, but they're top for me. If I did a list of like my favorite Doctor Who villains, they'd definitely be on it, because there's something just so scary about just like looking down and there's like a mark on you and you're like, oh God, they've been here. And I absolutely love that. There was so much going on. I loved that we had River. And there was kind of that moment where she's talking to, I believe, Rory, where she's saying like that the more she knows the Doctor, it's that they're kind of sort of in reverse, sort of, and that like, you know, the first kiss, last kiss thing. I mean, it's just so, I loved it. And then it ends on a big old whopper, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on here? I absolutely, and it starts with a big old whopper with, like, you know, 11 getting shot by an astronaut. You know what I'm saying? It's just, I love it. It is just a roller coaster, and it is so much fun. I love that two-parter. Number 19 on this list is going to be one of those ones that you're like, Jessica, you're kind of crazy. And I'm going to say, all right, I'll take that. So 19 on this list is one of the episodes that I find myself rewatching all the time, so I had to put it high. I love it, and that is A Town Called Mercy. I love this episode so much, and I know most people think it's not very memorable, but for me, bitch, it is so memorable. First of all, I love Westerns. I have a thing, and I told you guys about this before. I have a thing for Westerns, so that already had it, you know, going for it. Then we had, you know, Farscape alum in this mother effer. Okay, I'm already on board. All they needed was Nathan Fillion to show up, and I would have like lost my mind. But honestly, I think it's a good episode. It's a great kind of contained into this story. However, I love episodes that explore kind of a moral gray area, which is exactly what this episode did. I find myself rewatching A Town Called Mercy. It's one of the top ones that I rewatch the most. I absolutely adore it. And when I was like thinking about it, I was like, you know what? I have to put this really high on the list, because I just enjoy it so much. And sometimes you can't really explain too much why you enjoy something so much, but for me, I think it's a great contained story, and I love it to pieces. Number 18 on this list is The Magicians Apprentice, Witch's Familiar two-parter. Okay, I know it's weird. I get it. I know that it's bizarre that, you know, the two-parter that has all of the fucking snakes. I do not like snakes. I hate snakes. It's genuinely a phobia. Scare the fuck out of me. And so I'm sure you guys had a grand old time watching that reaction, but for me, it was not fun at all. And yeah, it is kind of shocking that it's this high on the list, isn't it? However, the power of Missy is strong. You know what I mean? And Missy can, you know, skyrocket that motherfucker pretty high on the list. Yes. She was a great part of this two-parter, I felt. One of my favorite scenes, I just love revisiting, is her and Clara's like opening scene in The Witch's Familiar. She's like, get your own stick. I love that scene, and her and Clara it was a very bizarre but fun duo, probably not for Clara, but you know, in that episode, and there was just so much going on, and it was such a fun episode. It was absolutely one of the biggest highlights for season 9 for me. I adored the way that 12 was written. In the episode, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Sonic sunglasses, but that's okay. It's all right. You take it with a grain of salt. But I just absolutely loved half of it. He came in riding on a fucking tank. That was the best, and just playing guitar and living his life. And just everything with Davros, and oh my God, there's such a crazy dynamic to be explored, and I just absolutely loved this two-parter. It was phenomenal. Number 17 on this list is The Name of the Doctor. So we're getting into just some big epic episodes sort of territory, and there was just, I was so happy that I was very satisfied with the conclusion of Clara's kind of impossible storyline. I absolutely adored that. And more so, I loved seeing the Paternoster gang. I always do. They're always a really good time, and it's kind of the culmination of a lot in Eleven's run. And first of all, ending on such a shocking moment was like powerful enough, but also I just feel like, I mean, the scene with Eleven and River was just so beautiful, and I quite loved that. And there's just so many moments, and I would say this is one of the more react worthy episodes. You know, there's just moment on moment on moment, and you're trying to keep up. And but I think the pacing was really good in the episode as well, and I love it. Number 16 on this list is The Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone 2-parter. The Weeping Angels are always pretty terrifying, I find, and they're a pretty good bad guy to have. This 2-parter was really great. I liked a lot of the, oh Lord, what was his name? Jorah? Bishop Octavian? Maybe I made that up. Anyway, I kind of liked his character. I liked the mystery surrounding River. I loved Eleven. Again, we're starting to see kind of these moments that really kind of solidified the kind of ending of the first half. Was a very big moment. Everything with kind of Amy losing her sight, so to speak, or not being able to open her eyes and everything. It was just, I absolutely think that it was such a good time to do a really good, I feel like, character building 2-parter that also had a lot of like scary moments and a lot of, you know, shit going down as well. But I thought it was the perfect time to do this, and it was pretty early on, and it was kind of the start of me really falling for these characters and loving them so much, and just, yeah, absolutely love it. Number 15 on this list is Twice Upon a Time. Such a great episode. I've said this so many times before, so I'm sorry for repeating myself, but I loved the fact that, you know, the soldiers laying down their weapons and stuff. It's such a very 12 thing. And for that to be kind of his final moments, or in his final episode, it was just, I really loved that. I like that they tried to do a couple of nods to his run. I like that he got to kind of say goodbye to his companions and everything like that. But I think the biggest part of this episode, or for me, there was a lot. And I talk about it pretty extensively in my season 10 review, but one of the things that I really loved were his final words, and it was kind of like he was speaking to us and he was trying to implore us to be better versions of ourselves. And I think that really wraps up who 12 is, and I just absolutely loved it. And it just, you know, I thought it was a beautiful and lovely final story for him. Number 14 on this list is where I put on my like bulletproof vest, and you guys are gonna come for me. You guys are gonna come for me. Ooh, sinking down in my chair. Oh Lord, here we go. Number 14 on this list is Heaven Sent. I know, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. That it's not, well, I mean, people are, I already got, it was funny, I put it in my top few episodes for season 9, and I got like a bunch of people being like, how dare you not make it #1? So I'm sure that I'll get that again. Please leave your hate below, okay? It's a masterpiece. I don't deny that it's not a masterpiece. There's just, I tend to, the thing is a lot of things that I cling onto and a lot of scenes that I cling onto are character relationships, and it was kind of just him for the majority of it. But I don't deny that it's not an impeccable episode. Phenomenal. I just absolutely love it. And to really showcase Peter's acting, to really showcase how determined he is, how strong the Doctor is. A lot of times, I think in previous episodes and things like that, I think that there's a lot of talk about how strong the Doctor is and whatever. And you believe it, but this really showcased it. This really said, you know, listen, he's not fucking around, you know, and I just, such a beautiful ending with what I think is a great twist at the end, and it was phenomenal. Number 13 on this list is Dark Water and Death in Heaven, that 2-parter. I love it. Guys, season 8 is one of my favorites. I'm not gonna lie, I love season 8, and it's rough going, but I feel like the conclusion of it really wraps everything together so wonderfully that I just adore it so much. I mean, I love season 8 so much, and I think a very big part of it is because of how well I feel like they ended the season with this 2-parter. I loved the Missy reveal. I still feel stupid for it. Can we talk about how dumb I felt for not figuring that out? It just, you know, it left my mind or something like that, because, I mean, you can go watch the reaction. But anyway, phenomenal reveal. I loved it. It's just brings Missy to the forefront, and you know I am here for it. And her whole say something nice I was obsessed with and just kept saying it to people in my life, but they didn't watch Doctor Who, so they just thought I was crazy. Or they would actually say something nice, and I was like, that's not the point. But I really I loved the ending. I don't think it's a secret that I loved the way that he kind of had, you know, Danny led the army to kind of protect Earth, and it just, I don't know. I was, well, and you guys know how I feel about Cyberman stories. I'm just a big fan. But I really adored it, and it's one of those finales that I think has a really great rewatchable factor. There's some moments that I think are just so beautiful, and it makes me happy to know that they really ended off Capaldi's first season, I think, very well, even though you may not agree. That's what makes the world go round, but I absolutely love this 2-parter. Number 12 on this list, and it's kind of fitting that it's number 12, I guess. I didn't even think of that. Anyway, number 12 on this list is Flatline. And some of you might think that's kind of crazy. I loved the tiny TARDIS, and I loved the comedy with all of that. But in general, I loved that I was genuinely terrified in this episode. And before this episode, I made a point, and I think it was in Kill the Moon, and I'm not remembering the other one at this point, but I remember I brought it up a couple times in the season where they were like, you can't shoot somebody, or you can't hurt somebody, or you can't attack or whatever if you don't know if they're going to do you harm, but they might do you harm and whatever. And I made the point of like, man, I really wish at some point that they did come across some type of villain that really just meant harm. And what happens with that? How do you approach that? and then Flatline happened, and I was like, woo, here we go. And Flatline is the episode that solidified Peter as the Doctor for me, or as my second favorite Doctor. I loved it. His speech where he would, oh, yes, when he gets like badass and sassy, I am here for it so much. And you always remember, I feel like you always remember the turning point with a new Doctor of like, oh, that was the moment that did it for me and I love them. This was the episode. So it's actually very fitting that it's in the number 12 on my list, but it's my favorite episode of season 8, and I just think I love that it's a scary story. I love that it really showcased Clara kind of having to be the Doctor, and I loved that, you know, but the Doctor really came in and saved the day in the end, and it just, oh, I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And number 11 on this list and the last one on this list, I kind of cheated. A little bit. I sort of cheated. If you guys were like, these numbers don't add up or something like that, I don't really know what's going on or whatever. Number 11 on this list is An Adventure in Space and Time. I know that it's not technically like an episode and it's like a special and it has nothing to do, I know, but I felt like it was a big part of my Doctor Who December last year, and it kind of was leading up to the 50th, and it was kind of within the Moffat. You know what? I'm putting it on the list. It's my list, and I can do whatever I want. So, I love it. I absolutely love it. I've watched it again a couple times since, and it's just, man, the brilliance of it and the way that it explains the history of the show and the way that it makes me cry so much. I can't take, my lord, when 11 shows up, I lose my mind. It really honestly, like, it's so beautiful, and I love that they did kind of a nod to William Hartnell. There's something very well acted, very well written about this special, and I just absolutely adore it. But yeah, sorry that it's on this list because it kind of doesn't count, but I think it counts. Anyway, whatever, it's my list. So that is it for this installment of my ranking of the Moffat era episodes. I only have the top 10 left, so look out for that video at some point in this Doctor Who December. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye!